With Bernardo going out, Ryan, and the others that you mentioned that have gone out already, perhaps it could pave the way for some incomings. And the one name that's been on the lips of a lot of Celtic fans this week is Fares Ghedjemis. Now, it's a guy we've talked about a lot on Record Sport Online and on this podcast. But I bring him up again, Ryan, because there was big news this week that apparently Rangers had an £8 million bid rejected for him. We know that Celtic have already had bids rejected for him. And this is a guy, Ryan, that Martin O'Neill has name-checked personally in the last 2 transfer windows. Now, Martin O'Neill's not a silly man. He's obviously an extremely experienced manager. He's not going to name-check someone and say, look, we're really close, if he doesn't really believe that. I mean, it just seems like an odd situation because we know how modern transfers work. I would imagine that someone, or Rangers wouldn't have made a bid unless someone close to Ghedjemis had encouraged them to do so. So it's a weird situation. I mean, what do you make of it?
Yeah, I was maybe surprised that Martin went on record with it. We did ask him the question in a daily presser last Friday, I think it was, at Lennoxtown. They confirmed that they have a strong interest. He obviously couldn't speak on behalf of Rangers, but he said that he's still kind of retains a strong interest in the player. So, look, he's clearly a player that Celtic have tracked for quite some time. Obviously, they were close to getting a deal over the line in January, but it kind of fell at the last hurdle. And, I think he scored 15 goals in Serie B last season. So, he's clearly, and he's an Algerian international as well. So, he's clearly a player of real quality. And just judging by his numbers, you wonder if he can maybe fill that void left behind by Lila Bada. Because you know how prolific that Lila Bada was at Celtic, and he scored some huge goals as well. Celtic obviously got him for a cut price fee, but they're going to have to splash out big bucks to land Ghedjemis, as you say, Dan. So yeah, it looks like Rangers have come to the table with a couple of bids. The latest been £8 million, and they've both been rejected. So I think his club will be looking for around at least £10 million, you believe, or upwards of that anyway. So it might, Celtic have shattered the transfer record to sign Casper Who. They might need to do it again to sign Ghedjemis as well. So we need to see how that one kind of transpires. But from the player's perspective, if you've got the 2 kind of Glasgow clubs coming for you, you probably think that your head would probably sway towards Celtic just based on the fact that they have the possibility or the potential to play Champions League football this season. And obviously Celtic have been the dominant force in Scottish football for the best part of the last 15 years. So they also have a track record of bringing these guys in and selling them on to bigger leagues like the Premier League, which you're going to see with Arnie Engels, that you're going to see with Alistair Johnson. So Celtic, fans won't like to hear it, but Celtic is essentially a stepping stone for these guys, for foreign players coming in, because their ultimate goal is to play in the Premier League, or as I say, one of Europe's top 5 leagues. And Celtic have provided that pathway for so many players. So that's not to say that Rangers haven't. Obviously, there's been likes of Calvin Bassey and Nathan Patterson have left Rangers, and Joe Aribo as well. But Celtic have been much, I think, better. They've been the flag bearers when it comes to that in Scottish football. So you'd think that Ghedjemis would fancy a move to Celtic, but ultimately, just like Celtic are demanding 25 million for Arnie Engels and 15 for Alistair Johnson, Celtic have got these evaluations for these players. So likewise, they're going to have to meet the valuation for players that they're trying to buy as well. So, but you hope that this one doesn't rumble on and on and on, because they really need to get their business done. They absolutely need to get a winger in before the Champions League playoff. Otherwise, you're just in the exact same predicament as you were last season. And Martin O'Neill's going to begin into this playoff with one hand tied behind his back, because he's not going to get the ammunition to serve the 2 new lethal weapons he's got up front in Camilo Duran and Casper Who. So there's no point in bringing these guys in if you're not going to be able to give them the service. And James Forrest, I'm James Forrest's biggest fan, but you can't be relying on a 35-year-old James Forrest to go into these Champions League £40 million winner takes all Champions League playoffs. Yeah, starting these games, it's not fair on him. I don't think Celtic just can't afford to do it. So you've got Yang obviously as well, who I do think Yang's come on leaps and bounds, and then you've got Sebastian Tenetke, who I think he's just he's shown flashes, but he's been far too inconsistent. I think he's got a big point to prove this season. So look, Celtic are clearly weak in the wide areas, and they really need to address that. And I think if they need to push the boat out a wee bit further to get Ghedjemis in the door, then that's just what they're going to have to do. But they need to get their business done ASAP because, yeah, the clock is really ticking towards this deadline. And look, you can look at the August the 19th as the first home leg, but the squad registration for Celtic to get these guys in is to register the 25-man squad is actually the August the 13th. That's when they need to submit that squad. And then they've got, I think, a 24-hour buffer before the first game to add an additional 2 players. So it wouldn't surprise me if Celtic submit their squad as it is just now next week in August the 13th, and then they add 2 additional players 24 hours before the game. So that wouldn't surprise me at all. But he's clearly a player that Martin O'Neill wants. He wouldn't have name-checked him otherwise. Like you say, Dan, he name-checked him in January as well. So, yeah, I think he's really wanting that deal done, and the Celtic board need to back him.
The other area as well, and you're spot on about the wingers, Ryan, that was the thing that was glaring to me the other night, the need for creativity out wide, albeit Yang, I agree with he's come on immeasurably since he first broke into the team. But centre mid, Ryan, I mean, you look at the other night, we've mentioned that if we accept Arne Engels is going, Callum McGregor, I would think, probably is going to stay. It's just a feeling from me. But Martin O'Neill again kind of stopped short of saying that after the game. And then on the bench the other night, Rio Hatate was another centre mid option, more than likely away. And Luke McCowan, who I think is a decent player, but he's a squad player. You're not going to have him starting every game. I mean, I know Mika Bauer has been linked, but to me, I mean, they desperately need centre midfielders as well.
Yeah, absolutely. We've this since last season, Dan. I think they're clearly lacking energy in the middle of the park, energy and power, and they just need fresh blood. I think definitely Arne Engels, never till he's going to go. But when it's going to happen, he's not going to be a Celtic player come the transfer window closing September the 3rd. So they'll need to get a replacement in for him. They'll need to get a replacement in for Paulo, who's already out the door. And Rio Hatate is going to be leaving as well if he can get a club. He's submitted he's made it clear to the club that he wants to test himself elsewhere, which is absolutely fine. Celtic got the best out of him, and he's entitled to want to go and have another challenge after 4.5 years in Glasgow. So that's fine. But Celtic players in to replace these guys, and they've got to be again first team ready players as well. And in this current market, you're not going to get a first team ready player unless you're willing to pay the big bucks. So Mika Bauer, he's that's more than a link. Celtic have been in talks with Paderborn over Mika Bauer. As yet, they've not been able to strike a deal. As I say, Mika Bauer's out of contract at the end of next season. Paderborn are back in the Bundesliga, and they're playing hardball, Dan. They're not willing to lose him for £4 or £5 million. I think they're holding out for more. So talks have kind of stalled in that one. And again, how long does Celtic wait before turning attention to other targets?